First of all, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out. Uh, I know this is such a weird time to have a Zoom call. I'm so sorry, but this is like the only time that I'm kind of free during my day. Um, but welcome once again. Um, and this is really an honor for me because I really feel like I am not the most qualified person to be giving this talk or this session. I feel like I know at least a dozen people who'll be much more suited to do this right now. But um, they say God doesn't call the qualified, right? So, so here we are. Thank you all so much for joining. So I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name is Carissa, and I'm married with two kids. And I'm sure if I move a bit, you may see that there's another person on the way as well. Um, I am so a bit about me. Um, so I'm trained as like a multimedia designer type. So I did graphic design in school. Then later on, I picked up videography and photography, and then a little bit of marketing on the side. So that's my background. Um, whilst I was still single, sort of preparing for marriage, I knew that I would want to homeschool my children at some point. So um, it's just that I didn't expect that I would have the children like so soon. So we had kids like maybe or we conceived maybe like 3 weeks into the marriage, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this thing has come like so soon. I have to get prepared. So I started doing my research on homeschooling and just trying to figure out what the whole thing was about. So this is like our fifth year that we've been, okay, almost 5 years that we've been homeschooling. My firstborn has never been in a traditional school setting, and neither has my secondborn. Um, and um, yeah, so basically we've been homeschooling them since they were babies, right up until this point. Um, okay, so let's see. Um, so yeah, that's a bit of our journey, how we got started into like homeschooling and everything. I think towards the end of the session, I will share like where you can find me and some of the stuff that we've done. My friend and I, who's my mentor and my friend, Jifa, we host a podcast called Homeschool Conversations. It's been a while since we actually put out new podcast episodes, but we still have that bank of like just people who've been homeschooling for much longer than me that you can like listen to and glean so much information from. And then I'm also trying to put all my thoughts together into a way that I can share with everybody because I'm really nervous about this session. I feel like we're not going to get through everything. As I started writing, I realized that there's so much that I need to cover because I don't want to paint a one-sided picture of homeschooling. And I'll also like be sharing some resources that I have created that we've been using with our girls and all of that. So there's a lot to cover. And frankly, I'm quite nervous. I'm just hoping that I can get through everything. Um, so there are like, let's say, two or three parts to this. First, I'll give you like a basis as to why we decided to homeschool in the first place. Why didn't we like just send our kids to school? Um, and then I'll give so okay, so this whole thing will be divided into three sections. I'll give you like a bit of introduction why we decided to homeschool, why other people may decide to homeschool. Then we'll talk about like what I think should be your mindset as a mom or a parent who wants to homeschool before you even decide to homeschool. Some of the things that you need to just be aware of. And then the last part will be more of the practical side. I'm hoping I don't spend too much time on the like the preliminaries, but so let's just jump right in. So, but if you have a question, I think you can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat. I'm still checking the chat. And so if you have a question or anything, you can just put it there. Yeah. Okay. So I believe we can begin, right? So as I said, when I was single, I knew I would want to homeschool my kids. And whilst I was like sort of in the preparation stages for marriage, I kept on like listening to a lot of sermons on like biblical homemaking, biblical womanhood, being like a Christian wife and a Christian mother. And then I kept coming across the whole concept of homeschooling, but also mainly the fact that like as a parent is my God-given role to bring up my children. That's like the basis. Um, Ephesians 6 verse 4 and Deuteronomy 6 verse 6 to 7 are some of the verses that I feel like are direct commands to parents to raise up their children. It's your job. It's not the teacher's job. It's not the government's job. It's not the school's job. It's your job as a parent. If God calls you to become a parent, then he's giving that mandate to you. So then I began to just think about, okay, what does this mean practically? How do we do this practically? How do I raise up my child, like, and bring them up in the fear of the Lord, just on a practical sense? Because if they're going to be in school for 8 hours a day, then where do we get the time to actually fit in like this sort of discipleship thing? Um, I feel like the Bible paints a picture of like an ongoing, constant teaching that's kind of just woven into the fabric of your everyday life. And I was just like, okay, so if we have to send them to school, what's the time that we're going to use to do that? Because knowing how the city is, there is traffic, you have to sit in traffic for a long time, go to just to do drop-offs, come back, then you have to bathe, prepare meals, all of these things. I was like, okay, so how do we live this out like practically? Um, the data says that children spend something like 14,000 seat hours in school. That's time they are spending away from you as a parent that you don't know, like you don't have eyes on them. You don't know what they are hearing, you don't know what they are listening to, you don't know what they are sort of like being surrounded by. And when you kind of consider how Jesus was like living with his disciples, like they were all like always together, everybody was just Jesus, and then they were living, they were breathing, they were talking, they were walking, they were on the road, and like the discussions and things that they were having were all sort of like mixed up in the life that they were living. Um, Jesus, like I thought about Jesus like on the boat when the storm happened and the disciples kind of like woke him up, and like he had to give them a theological like lesson right from waking up from sleep, you know. And that's kind of like the picture that was painted in my mind. So then I was like, okay, then it seems like homeschooling might just be the thing that gives us like a chance to actually disciple our kids, and not just like send them off to Sunday school for 2 hours every week and then bring them back, but actually like live life with them, live life sort of like in step with them, so that we can use every opportunity and every moment to sort of shape their thinking about God and the world and other things. So that was like a very big part of the homeschooling puzzle for us. I mean, there are other reasons why people choose to homeschool. Um, Aside from that, when I think about my own homeschool journey, I think about the fact that I've always had this vague sense that like school didn't really prepare me to be an adult, didn't really prepare me to like live life um as like I never really felt prepared to be an adult. Like I didn't know how to bank when I had left school. I was basically financially illiterate, didn't know anything about world history, didn't know anything about world politics. Like, so as I've grown up, I've had to learn these things on my when I'm like, I've spent all of this time in school and nobody taught me how to use financial services. Nobody taught me how to invest. Nobody taught me how to save properly. Like, so what was the point? Like, what was the point of all of that? And one big thing as I like kept on doing my research was like with math, I was never really good at math in school, and I always felt intimidated by it. But as I kept on like researching homeschooling stuff, and I came across like something simple, it's called a tens frame. And what I realized that my problem was I couldn't visualize numbers, but you can use a tens frame to help you visualize numbers. And I feel like if I had this simple tool in my life, that could have like changed my whole relationship with math. But alas, here we are. It's already been said and done, right? And I also feel like we don't really teach our children to think very well. Like that element of critical thinking just seems to be missing in our curriculum. Like the mind needs to be trained to be able to decipher between truth and lies. As you go around and you live your life, you see that people are spouting a whole lot of things, and you need to have a keen eye to be able to decipher which one is the truth, which one is the lie. And then another reason we wanted to homeschool was that we want to at least get to know our children. If your children are away from you like for 14,000 hours, like you hardly get to know them. Like whatever is shaping them is going to be outside of the home for the most part. So we thought homeschooling might be a way to just foster that bond between parents and child. Another reason was that we wanted to be able to train up their character and their habits. I feel like as a parent, this is where the parenting job actually is. It's like the constant correction, giving feedback, training. Like you need to like it's almost like you are a gardener pruning a plant. You need to be there present. You need to see that okay, no, the way this branch is growing, if I don't cut it off now, it's going to cause problems in the future. So I need to deal with it now. So like that like constant training of their character and their habits was also very important to us. And then also sort of like to protect their innocence. I feel like the world that we grew up in, like in the 90s to now, is really not the same. Like there was a time when you would be outside, you see all the children playing, everybody's outside, nobody's like really mindful of the children, everybody's playing, we're all having fun together. But now it's a very different world, it's a very different society. Apart from like maybe physical dangers, they are like there's a very real danger of like the online world and things that children are getting exposed to. And as a parent in this age, maybe in other ages it wasn't as important. But in this age, you need to be vigilant. Like you need to be able to protect their innocence, protect their minds, protect their little attention spans. We're living in a world that people can barely sit down to read for an extended period of time because our minds are so fragmented by social media. And as a parent, you need vigilance. Um, and then also, I'm just really like, as we've begun this journey, excited that I can like relearn some of the things I never got the chance to learn in school. So those are some of the reasons why we decided to homeschool. Other people, you may have your own reasons why you choose to homeschool, which will also be totally valid. They may not they will not necessarily be religious reasons per se, but maybe you're disillusioned with the school system, or your child is not just not getting the support that they need in the school system, or they have a special need, or you are experiencing that they are being bullied and there's like negative peer pressure at school, or just like there are so many reasons why people choose to homeschool. I think you need to just define for yourself why you are choosing to do it, what are your reasons, and then always sort of like keep that at the forefront of your mind. Um, because it's quite a journey. It's not an easy journey if you decide to do it. But it's definitely worth it. I think I can say that now. Um, okay, so we'll move on to the second part, which is like some of the sort of mindsets that I feel like as a parent you need to have coming into homeschooling. And so the first thing I think is that you need to recognize that your child is a person. They are a baby, they cannot talk, they are crying and all of that. but they are a person. They are created in the image of God. And so you need to give them certain considerations that you give to adults. You need to give those same considerations to your child. You need to love them, speak to them with dignity and respect as human beings, not see them as like I've just created a bunch of little minions and they are just going to serve me for the rest of my days. No. Like as a parent, you are a servant leader. Um, you're a servant leader. You are there to you would have to love your child through serving them. And once you kind of put it in your mind that okay, this is a person created in the image of God, I think helps it helps you as a parent to know just how to relate with a child. The second thing I would like to talk about is like the home. Like when you decide to homeschool, you realize that the home part is just as important as like the education part. Okay. The home is like the place where the children are going to be. They're going to spend a lot of their time. So you need to strive to create a warm, loving home. Like you need to put in certain things like speaking to each other with kindness and love, trying your best not to yell, trying your best not to get upset, you yourself practicing patience and joy, and just as a parent, being a joyful parent. Um, Sometimes we get in the rat race of trying to provide for our children, right? We want to give them the best of everything. But I've come to find that what children really, really need is a parent who is happy and a parent who is present, a parent who is there to, play with them, talk to them, love on them, just creating this atmosphere of joy in the home. I feel like that is very, very important. Um, if you are going to homeschool, because when you start homeschooling you realize that the school itself is not where the children make the connections with what they're actually studying. Is when they are playing, is when they are just like living life normally. Then you'll come to you with questions, or you'll see something in the world that like relates to what you had told them before. And then you realize that they are making those connections. So you need to provide opportunities, like several opportunities around them within the home to be able to play, to learn, um, just to be the home has to be like a different place. If you're homeschooling, your home is not just like, oh, we are going out and then we are coming back just to sleep and then go back to like work or school the next day. Now your home is like the center and the seats. As you can see, like we have a whole library behind us. Um, because we are thinking of we need to provide books, we need to provide opportunities for reading, for learning. Like that, all of these things that you would have to sort of keep at the back of your mind. And like I was saying, you also need to have the eye to realize the learning opportunities as they come, because they're not going to happen like when like you've opened the books and then you're reading. I remember when my firstborn was 2 and we had been learning about counting, and she was kind of trying to figure out the number quantity of 2. And so she used to sleep by me at the time, and we had just woken up in the morning, and she was like, I don't know, for some reason she had 2 things in her hands, and then she was like, Mama, it's 2. And so I was like, at that moment I realized that, oh, what we've been like talking about the whole time, like, is now that the light bulb has gone off in her mind. So I had to rouse myself from sleep and then teach her in that moment that yes, it's 2. You have 2 things in your hands, 1 and 2. So the learning happens every day, all around you, constantly. You have to have the eye to see that learning is happening. And so I need to like grasp that opportunity. And then I also think that as a parent doing this, you are going to be teacher and also mama. And that is quite a balancing act. Like you have to be friendly, but you also have to be firm. Like you have to really strike this balance of okay, You need to be able to listen to me when I tell you something, but also I'm approachable and you can come to me and we can play and we can have fun. So that's one thing. And then I think just to end out this session, or this part, is you need to be consistent. You need to be consistent and diligent as a parent. If you choose to homeschool, you need to be consistent. You will find that your children will progress if you do something for 5 minutes every day consistently, rather than if you do that same thing, let's say 30 minutes every 2 days. 5 minutes a day goes a long way, provided you are consistent. Um, just as I was talking about training them in habits, you need to be consistent with it. I remember when I was trying to like teach my child how to say please and pardon, it was a battle, but I had to be consistent. Every time that she would use the wrong word, I have to come in and say, no, we don't say it that way. We have to say pardon, we have to say excuse me. Like, you need that consistency to be able to homeschool well. And it's not an easy job. Like, nothing in this world is easy. So it's like you just choose the hard that you feel like you can deal with, right? And so when it comes to homeschooling, it's not easy. Like, it's kind of like a 24/7 job, especially if you're doing it with this age range of between 0 and 5. It's like no days off. You are on the clock literally every day, right? So you need to be able to like wake up in the morning and we are doing this, you know, wake up in the morning and have that like just sense of we are doing this every day. We are doing this every day. It's like it's a slow, steady climb. Every day we are sort of like marching forward. We are putting one step in front of the other. And you realize that by the time a year passes, when you look back, you see that you have covered so much ground and it didn't even feel like you were doing much in the moment, but you realize that you have come like so far. Um, okay. So I think we can move on to like the practical session. We only have so much time left, and I want us to be able to get into some of the practicals. Um, but I think I'll just close out this session, like this part, with a really good quote that I feel like as a parent, if you just have this at the back of your mind, it really helps. So it says, little drops of water, little grains of sand, make the mighty ocean and the pleasant land. Through little moments, humble though they be, make the mighty ages of eternity. Most of what we as parents do all day are little grains of sand. You read a book, you correct a child, you make a meal, you sweep a floor, change a diaper, and the days seem to be full of small tasks. But their smallness does not mean that they are insignificant. It's in these ways that we love our families. So that's a quote by a lady called Misty Winkler. And I feel like it really encapsulates what you'll be doing when you decide to homeschool. It's little moments of this, little moments of that. And you realize that after some time, they've all just sort of come together into this monumentous thing. So now, and I want to be as practical as possible. Um, when I put out the poll sort of about homeschooling, I feel like most of my most of the audience or people who are interested in homeschooling are mainly starting with a toddler or maybe with a baby or have a baby thinking about, okay, what do we do? So that's where I'm going to begin from. Um, and it also sort of seems to me that most people just want to homeschool till the child is ready till they're about school age and then send them off to school, which is also totally fine. Um, so I'm not going to talk too much about like educational philosophy and like there's a whole other like segment if homeschooling is what you're choosing to do for the long haul. But I'm just focusing right now on between 0 to 5. What are some of the things you can do to begin homeschooling your child? So we'll start with when they're a baby. So that my first point would be that let them cling to you. I know that is not a lot of things. That's something that people don't like to hear. They're like, don't hold the baby too much. They'll be clingy. They'll not let you have your time and all of that. But I really do think that children or babies specifically are born with a need for attachment. And you can do research on attachment theory or attachment parenting. And I think you would get like a whole world of information. Honestly, I feel like we should be teaching that at antenatal classes as well, because a lot of parents don't know that if your child does not attach to you properly, it can lead to attachment disorders in the future. So what that means practically is when they're a baby, like if you think about it, like if you look at the animal kingdom, like a baby animal will be born within a few hours. They can walk, they can find their own grass to eat, like like they are just up and about within a few hours. But that's not how God has designed it for human babies. For human babies, they will be like they're designed with a need for you as the parent. They need you to care for them. They need you to hold them. They need you to soothe them. Like you are the bridge between them and this like scary world that they just kind of like got dropped into. And I believe that that is a feature of the system. And so when you have young children, hold them, like love them, kiss them, look in their faces, talk to them. And I know it may sound crazy, but like these things go a very, very long way. Um, let them cling to you. They will only cling to you for so long because they are children. They will not be little forever. One day you have to let them go. But it's at this point in their lives that they need to cling to you. They need you to be there to support them. They need you to be there to care for them, to make sure, like they need to get to the point where they can trust you as the adults to provide for their needs. And so it's in that trusting that if they don't trust you, then they start to develop an attachment disorder because it's like if I'm a baby and I'm crying for hours and nobody is coming to my attention, then I feel like I'm in an unsafe environment and nobody is going to care for me. And so I have to fend for myself. And if you really look into attachment theory, it really explains why sometimes a lot of people act the way that they do. And it's something that unfortunately we are not too privy to. So please, I think I'll be giving a little bit of homework as we go along. So one thing to look into is attachment theory, okay, or attachment parenting. And and because we also live in a society where like we are constantly on our phones all the time, it's very easy for you as a parent to be distracted. And so if you choose to homeschool, some of that is going to have to be put aside so that you can focus solely on the child. I feel like we sort of have things turned upside down, like as parents sometimes. Like when they are young, we don't want them to be too clingy. So, we're always trying to find ways to like keep them occupied or away from us. And then as they grow older, that's when it's like we want to try to bring them closer and force them and like try and get to know them at that point. But I think it should rather be the other way around. You cling to them when they're really, really young, you protect them, you are there for them, and then you slowly let them go out into the world, let them become persons and individuals. So yes, I think as a parent, I think we should all just strive to put the phone down and seek connection with our children. It's very, very important. Okay. Then the second thing when you have a baby, you're starting to homeschool, is to talk, to read, and to let them listen. Okay. The most important thing you can do for your baby is to talk to them. What talking does is it develops their ability to speak. It develops their speech. It develops their vocabulary. And so you need to talk to them. When you're a baby, yes, you can use baby talk sometimes, maybe when you're playing with them and stuff, but primarily you talk to them like you're talking to an adult. You talk to them like you're having an actual conversation, but with a baby. I know it sounds a bit silly, but once you put it into practice, you realize that their speech, their ability to talk starts to develop very early. Um, so what that looks like practically is when they're a baby and let's say you are changing their diaper, you say, "Oh, hi baby, I'm changing your diaper. Look at your legs. I'm holding your legs. Let me take off your diaper. I'm using a wipe. Oh, it's cold. Let me use the cold wipe to wipe your bum. I'm putting the wipe inside the bin." Like, so you're like narrating everything that you're doing to them. You're narrating your day. Oh, look at this chair, look at this bowl. I'm using the ladle to scoop your food into the bowl. Like whatever you can say about anything and everything, you should say. You can take like when they start to babble, you can take their responses, you can take their babbling as responses, and then just have like a conversation with them. If they say, if they do their babbling, then you also say, yes, that's true. Tell me more about it. It sounds very funny as you're doing it, especially for me, it was very hard because I'm more introverted. I'm more introverted and I would rather not talk. I would rather, sorry. I'd rather not like I'd rather be quiet and speak to myself. But when you don't talk to them, how do I say, language development is all about auditory inputs. They need to hear They need to hear sounds in order to be able to interpret those sounds and then copy and mimic those sounds. So if they are not hearing as much input, then it becomes difficult for them to speak. So one thing you can also do is to read a lot with the children. Like you get these um they are called board books. Lots and lots of board books as much as you can. They are much steadier and the children cannot rip them as much as possible. They will put them in their mouth. Sometimes you will lose some of the books. It's okay. It's okay. It's sort of like the price you have to pay for literacy. Okay. You get books and you read them over and over and over again. The same book about 20 million times until you're driven to the point of madness. But it's very important that they get that repetition. Repetition is so important for children at this stage. They need to hear the words over and over and over and over again. And I also need to mention that, like, please look for good, high quality books that have lots of rhythm, lots of rhyme, lots of structure. Like the literature should be on point. There are so many children's books that are poorly written, and so you need to be on the lookout. It should be rich, it should be engaging, it should be full of like words. So what one thing that we did was we sort of skipped like a lot of the baby books and we went for more like preschool level books. And so the stories are a bit longer and it just helps because when you read a book, you use up more vocabulary than you would probably normally do in your everyday life. Okay, so reading, talking, talking, talking. I can't stress this point enough. Reading, talking, and then by extension also listening. Um, audiobooks and audio, like, how do I say it? Like audiobooks are a game changer. If you haven't started using audiobooks with your child, please start today. Look for a story, like a simple children's story on audio and put it on at meal times when they are playing, when they sit down to do any kind of activity, just put on an audiobook, let them listen to it. As they listen, it just it just does something for their language and their speech development. Audiobooks have been a game changer in our homeschool, to be honest. A lot of people comment on how well my firstborn speaks. And to be honest, I credit it entirely to audiobooks. Just the fact that she listens a lot. So every time that she's sitting down to do an activity, I just pair it with an audiobook. And somehow you just kind of see her zoning in. She just like tunes into whatever she's listening while she's still doing whatever she's doing. and it has built her vocabulary. Some of the words that she speaks, my husband will always say, I never used to use that word when I was 4 years old. Like, they learn a lot just by listening. So this point, I can't stress it enough. Talking to your baby, reading to them, and letting them listen. Listen more than watching screens. Yes, the screen time issue. A screen time issue. So actually the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics is that children under 18 months should avoid screen time altogether, unless maybe it's to like for video calling with a relative or somebody who is like not in the country with you. But the recommendation is no screen time, zero screen time, zero. I know it's very hard to do when you're a mom with a new baby and you have things to do and you just need them to sit down for a few minutes so that you can breathe. But it's so important that screen time is limited, because what happens is the screen time and whatever you're trying to accomplish in education, it cannot coexist in the same space. The screen time will erode whatever progress they are making, because when they sit down in front of the screen, they are just passive. They are not actively engaged in whatever is going on. Maybe you feel like it's an educational show, but at this young at this young age is not that educational for them. What they actually need at this young age is face-to-face interaction. They need to see you talking to them, see how your face moves, see how your mouth moves when you're interacting with them. They need to learn their social and visual cues from watching you, not primarily watching somebody on the screen. What happens sometimes is you show them a TV show, and the behavior that they end up copying is not the good one. It's always the bad one, or the bad character in the show that is doing something funny or awkward. You as an adult, you can interpret that what this child is doing is not good, but they can't tell. For them, they are just copying, they are just mimicking. So one other point is to turn off the TV. Don't just have it on as background noise. No, use the audiobooks instead. Like I said, audiobooks are a game changer. And with screen time, like I said, I'm not saying ban it completely. That's why I use the word limit, because I know sometimes we need to use the screen as a babysitter so that we can get something crucial or vital done. And also, screens can be beneficial. Like when the child is much older and they're able to understand the world a little bit better, there's so much good content out there that can be delivered through screens. But I'm talking mainly in this young formative from 0 to 18 months, 0 to 2. To be honest, if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would limit screen time till she was about 3 years old. Because like I said, yes, sometimes you need to use the screen, and we would give my firstborn screen time for extended periods of time. And then there was always like a price to pay for the screen time. There would be tantrums, there would be meltdowns. She'd be frustrated when you turn off the TV, she would cry. Like, so many things that happen. I remember one time, so this was even just recently, I was not well, so we went to my in-laws place for some time. And at my in-laws place, they get to watch more TV than they would at home. And like after watching TV so much for like a week, all of a sudden my little girl who loves to read says she doesn't want to read. She was crying. She was frustrated. She doesn't want to read. She doesn't like books anymore. Like, it was a whole dramatic something. But I mean, it's only confirmed what I have known for a while now, that the screens, they erode the progress that you are making. So as much as possible, limit it. If you are going to use screens, know that there'll be a price to pay for the screen time, and be willing to pay it. So usually what we would do was that we never just turn off the TV like at once. What we do is, if we are watching a cartoon, then we switch to like something that is more calm, like a cooking show or something of that sort. We switch to that. And then gradually she'll just like sort of walk away from the TV and then we turn it off. Um, and then also when they're just sitting down watching the TV, not expending that energy that you need them to expend. So right after watching the screen time, now they're full of energy, they're bouncing off the walls, they're doing all kinds of things. And so you have to plan for that and give them like some sort of cool down activity so that they can bring themselves back down to reality. So yes, use it sparingly, use it when you must. Um, but try as much as possible in this stage to limit it. What they need is face-to-face interaction with you. And screens are for entertainment. If you need to entertain them for a little while so that maybe you can do something, you can get their hair done, you can do something, that's fine. But use it sparingly, use it wisely. And also, I must also caution all of us as parents, if you have YouTube on your phone, please switch to the YouTube Kids app and set it in such a way that you control the content that is being shown on the YouTube Kids app. What is happening is that there are these like parody cartoons on YouTube where it's like you see Spider-Man and Elsa and like some other like popular characters all together. And so your child sees it and oh, these are like my favorite characters or whatever. But then actually it's like some minor creator who has put the video together and Elsa and Spider-Man are doing some funny things like in the video. So like and there's a ton of that kind of content on YouTube. Um, or like the characters are like performing some sort of self-harm, or they are doing something that like your children should not be seeing. Or you see like, okay, it's number blocks, but now it's like zombie number blocks. So please be vigilant, be careful with the screens. um as much as possible. If you have YouTube, don't give them just YouTube. Use the YouTube Kids app. Set it in such a way that you control the content that they are watching and limit it, have limits for the screen time. Don't let them be watching for hours and hours and hours on end. Have limits. And we need to all be extra, extra vigilant because there are like LGBTQ cartoons and transgender cartoons and like all these kind of things that are going on if you don't have your eyes open as a parent. I mean, your children will be exposed to something that you may not want to. So it's your job to curate what the contents that they are watching. You watch it yourself first and then let them have it. If it's okay, if it's approved, you can let them have it. Okay. Um, that also if you want to be really radical in this area, it may mean like a sacrifice on your part. You would have to probably clean up more messes in the house because instead of them just sitting down, they're bouncing around, they're going around making messes. Yes, but I really feel that it is worth it. And another thing too is reading is like or learning to read or sitting down to do schoolwork eventually it's a mentally active like job. Your child needs to be able to sit down, focus on like characters on a page that are not dancing, they are not jumping, they are not wiggling, they are not moving, they are not doing anything to entertain you. You need to have that focus. And that's why I was saying that the screen time ends up eroding the ability to focus. It shortens their attention spans. They can't sit down, they can't because the black and white pictures are not entertaining them in any way. And so this is it's something it's a skill you have to protect. Their attention is a skill you have to protect by limiting screen times as much as possible. All right, so the next thing I'll talk about is toys and sensory play and then exploration. Um, so what brain science tells us is that between 0 and 5 years, the brain is like forming pathways, neurological pathways. And by 5 years old, if the brain has not formed certain pathways, it will just sort of like prune off whatever it doesn't need. So the more you give your child something tactile, something to engage with, something for their minds to be working on all the time, it helps the brain to form those pathways. And and so that means that every now and then you have activities or you let your child explore. Like they need to touch different things. They need to see that, oh, this texture is smooth and this texture is rough, or this is shiny and this is dull. They need to have their hands in something all the time. So you can set up little sensory play activities for them. Um, Obviously within reason, it should be safe for the child, and it should be something that is safe for them to handle. So please exercise caution. But some of our favorites are like just playing with water or Play-Doh, or if you go outside, sand. If you're indoors, what some we are able to sort of like make a dough from gari and then just let them like pretend like it's Play-Doh. Um, and as they're having that sensory play, it's a perfect time for you to bring in your audiobook. You pair the sensory play with audiobook and you just see like just attention and concentration being built in the child. Um, don't feel like you need to buy a ton of toys for your kids, not at all. And one thing about Montessori, for example, Montessori philosophy is that you should avoid toys that are like too bright, too colorful, too flashy. They are making noise. They are just there to sort of entertain the child. But instead, look for simple toys where the child has to actually take an action for the toy to work. And obviously, that's better for everybody's like peace of mind, but also it's good sensory input. As like for a baby, what's a baby's work is to figure out how things work. So I know Montessori has a particular toy called the ball drop toy, where they have like a hole at the top of a box. The child has to pick up the ball, put it inside the hole, and then it rolls back down. Then they do it all over again. As an adult, when you look at that, that is very simple to you. It's a simple concept. You finish it in 2 minutes. But for a little child, like developing the coordination to be able to pick up the ball, find the hole, drop it, and then realize that, oh, it has come back again. Where did it go? I thought I put it inside the box. How come it has come back again? Like all of that process that the brain is going through, and then the hand muscles are also working on is fantastic work for a little baby. So if you can find Montessori toys, those are always, I think, for babies, a very good option. Montessori toys can be quite pricey, but so what we would do in the beginning was you just kind of look at the concept of the toy and then see whether you can make a DIY version at home. So we had like a DIY version of the ball drop toy where I used like just cardboard boxes. I cut a hole, like two holes, and then we found some balls to put it inside. Um, yes. And you also find that like they really like to play with the things in the house. Your pots and pans, your spoons, your bowls, the remotes. Of course, you just take out the battery. Just give them real, like I think they are more interested in real life things. Okay, so yeah. Then we also talk about cultivating attention. Like I said, an attention span needs to be cultivated in your child so that later on in life they can be able to sit down and do the schoolwork that you're expecting them to do. And that starts from right when they are a baby. So giving them those toys where they can sit down for 5 minutes and just try and figure out what is going on with the toy. Or like whenever you see your baby and they're like really into something, of course, if it's safe, they're really, really into something, they're trying to figure out how it works, they're like just going around about it. You just leave them, give them that 5 or 10 minutes, let them be really, really engrossed in whatever it is that they're doing. And that's how you begin to cultivate their attention. So you need to give them that space and time to do that, because that attention span, we need it later on in the future when we need them to actually steady, sit down and focus. It's a muscle that needs to be built up. Okay. Then the other thing I'll talk about is practical life. Little children are very, very capable. They're capable of learning like how to participate in regular activities of life. A 2-year-old can be taught how to wipe a table. They can be taught how to pull clothes from the washing machine and put it into a basket. They can be taught how to pour water from a small cup. They can be taught to fold a napkin. They can be taught to wash their hands. So all of these things end up in like being part of your homeschooling, because it's like not it's not a teacher that's teaching them, it's you you the parents who's going to be instilling these things in them, and let them come alongside you whilst you're doing your chores. They can be taught to sweep. They can be taught to like use a small dustpan and a small broom and just sweep stuff up. When they are getting older, they can be taught to crack an egg and fry it safely, of course. um so all of these things, we can start to like just think about how you can incorporate your everyday life, practical life activities into their day. And of course, they'll make mistakes. They'll spill things. They'll use too much soap. They'll get frustrated, and it's like they'll have tantrums and meltdown because they can't do the things themselves. But it's all part of the learning process. Yeah. Then the next thing I want to talk about is habits training. You need to start early to train your children to have good habits, good manners, good habits, speaking well. When they are young and pliable, they are more susceptible to like your suggestions on how to talk and how to behave. So that is the time to like really cultivate good habits in them. Like saying please, saying thank you, saying excuse me. And this is a training that you have to do. So it means that every time that they don't use the right word, you need to correct it. Every time that you see them doing a bad habit, you need to go in there and check it. That's what I was saying earlier, that's the work, like the work of parenting, because you are repeating the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And then one day you look back and say, oh, okay, now they finally gotten it. But it was work. You have to take the pains to do it now so that later on you can have a smooth and easy time, rather than leaving it when they are, if you leave the bad habits and they practice those bad habits for 4 years, after 4 years, it becomes extremely difficult for you to break a bad habit. So you start when they are young, you teach them when they are young. Right now we are in that training phase with my 2-year-old, because she wants to cry for everything. And so every time we have to correct her and say, no, you need to calm down, you need to ask politely, say it with a smile, don't cry. And it's like a constant thing that we have to keep on doing until she gets it, that no, this is not the way that we ask for things. We have to ask politely. So this is a work that you can start when they are young. Um, there are other things you can teach them: how to pronounce words properly, how to show respect for people in authority, how to say please, how to say thank you, how to use our culturally appropriate gestures and all of that. And then we also talk about teaching them about God. It's never too early to start teaching them about God. Just as you expect them to learn their ABCs and one, two, threes, it's the same way that you can also teach them about God. When you are just living your regular life and you are praying with them every day, praying in the morning, praying in the evening, praying at meal times, they are hearing you mention this God, God, God here, God here, God here, Jesus there, Jesus there. Um, that is how they learn that there is a God. Okay, that's how they will know that there's a God, and you as a family, you are dependent on Him for your life and your breath and everything. It's never too early to start reading scripture with them. Little short verses are fine. As they grow older, you can look at getting devotionals for them. So getting into the habit of praying together every day, reading the Bible or a devotional of some kind. And we also have like these books about God. We have several of these sorts of like theology books in our house. They are written for children, and they teach them about God. So just as you are reading Brown Bread, Brown Bear, you can also be reading In the beginning, God created Adam and Eve. You know, just add that into your routine as well. And then singing hymns. If your family doesn't sing hymns, please let me recommend it to you, because they are very, very rich in theology, and they will teach your child for years and years to come. Memorization of God's words, short, short scriptures, um, that you can um your child can memorize. There are several people who have sort of put the scriptures into songs, and so you can just play it as you are going along your day, and and honestly, they pick it up because they are really like at that age, they're just like a sponge. Can also listen to audio Bibles and all of that. One tool that I feel like maybe a lot of people don't know about is called a catechism, or maybe those who are in Catholic circles would know. But even if you're not Catholic, a catechism is a tool that you can use to teach your child about the basics of the Christian faith. And I'm very passionate about catechisms because I feel like a lot of times the children go to Sunday school and they don't come out really knowing what the Word of God actually teaches about various topics. So we have these catechism cards which I designed myself, which we use for our catechism. So for example, it's just a series of questions and answers that the children memorize. So the first question says, "Who made you?" God made me. And then the next question is, what else did God make? God made all things. Then the next one is, why did God make you and all things for his own glory? And it just goes through several questions like that. Just teaching your child the basics of Christianity and what um what Christianity teaches. So by the time they keep on by the time they've like memorized all the questions, they have a solid foundation that now you can even use the catechism on its own as like a devotional, because now you have like scripture that you can reference, and then you can discuss, and then you can further teach them what the questions and answers mean. So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about. Um, okay. Then the next thing I'll talk about is, when they are that young, it's so important for them to get as much outdoor. Um, they should just be outside for as much of the day as possible. Um, some people recommend up to 4 hours. Some for little children between 0 and 2, 4 hours is a bit much for them to handle at once. But you can break it up into chunks where you can go out for 1 hour, 2 hours, let them play, let them jump, let them get themselves dirty, let them enjoy the sunlight. The sunshine and fresh air is so good for their bodies and so good for growing minds. Yeah, so as much of that as possible. And being outside is also a good basis for science, because how do you teach a child about science who has never been outside? They need to go and see and observe the flowers and the stream. They need to observe the insects and the crickets and all of those things. So they need to be outside. Being outside should be like a crucial part of homeschooling. It's good for you as the parent as well to be outside. It's good for your child to be outside. Everybody benefits from being outside. I think especially if you have young boys, it's so crucial for them to be outside. They need to be outside for long periods of time, just playing, getting out as much of the energy as possible. They'll come back inside, they'll feel much more refreshed. Okay. And then at this young stage, it's very important that you as the parent, you establish your God-given authority as the parent. Okay, you need to be diligent about the work of disciplining or having having clear boundaries, uh, um um about what is right and what is wrong, obviously using the word of God as the basis. But you need to be able to establish that no, I am the parent, you need to obey. And if you don't obey, these are the consequences that will happen. And follow through with those consequences. Not about shouting or screaming at your children. It's just about following through with those consequences each time that they disobey, so that they know that, okay, if I do A, B will happen. So maybe I shouldn't do A as much. Okay. And discipline must always be done lovingly. Lovingly with it. You must be firm, but you must be gentle. You must be loving and consistent. And moments of discipline also can be profound moments where you can actually help the child see that, yeah, the sin thing that we've been talking about, this is it. And this is why we need a savior. And this is why Jesus Christ came to die for us. And so discipline must be done with like a firm, gentle, loving. I have a short video that I think I'll just play now, and then I would talk about, like, now you want to start teaching them like early learning and then beginning instruction.
Okay, let's start with the welcome song, okay? Oh, hello and how are you? I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, thank you. What was the other song again? Bonjour, hello, bonjour, buenos dias, good day, guten tag, konnichiwa, ciao, shalom, doberien. Hello to all the children of the world. Let's pray. Kelly, come sit down and bow your head. As we have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation. But deliver us from evil. In Jesus' name we pray. Kara, Machin. Kelly. Yeah. Leading the car. Leading the mama. That's my name. Leading the car. So, who Papa, your friend Papa saying? Your friend Papa saying. You say, when Papa being the. Tomorrow. Is it 19? Yes, mine is 19. Alright. So everybody look outside. Outside. It's sunny. It's sunny and a little cloudy. It's more sunny, right? No, it's more sunny today. So let's pick a weather card. Today is it foggy? Come. Is it foggy? No. It's what? It's sunny. And what day is today? Today is Tuesday. Not for Tuesday. No, the days. Come sit down. Let's sing the days of the week. Kelly. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And we repeat again. Okay. January, February, March, April, May, June. Made you. God made me. Kara, who made you? God made me. And what else did God make? He made all things. What else did God make? He made all things. God, you are very great. Let's say it together. You are very great. Lord my God, you are very great. You are very great. Okay, let me play it first. Where's the speaker? Please bring this. You are very great. What are you saying? Lord my God, you are was one.
Let's do some jumping jacks. I move my body to stay healthy. Brush the corner, middle, brush the middle, other corner. Rub, 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 rub.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
16, 16,
17, 18, 19,
20. Next one. 4,
4,
6, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Alright, now countries in South America.
Argentina,
Venezuela and Colombia.
No, it's cold. No, it's cold.
Peru and Chile and Bolivia. Uruguay and Paraguay. Guyana and Suriname. These are the countries of South America. Kelly, this is the flag of
Brazil. Bolivia.
Bolivia. You say Para, put the kettle on. Para, put the kettle. Para, put the kettle on. We all have tea. Kelly, take it off again. Kelly, take it off again. Kelly, take it off again. We all gone away.
Hooray! Hooray!
Once I saw a little bird come hop, hop, hop.
Oh.
So I cried, little bird, will you stop, stop, stop?
But he shook his little tail.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he
So
flew.
we'll learn the rest later, okay?
Great. So we're back. Now we can talk about the ABCs. Everybody, I'm sure, has been waiting for this side. I've been going on and on. Okay, so starting with a baby or starting with a little child, when you want to begin teaching them, okay, so we want to focus mainly on 3 content areas when they are young. Don't try to do too much. What you saw in the video has come after almost 5 years now. So now we're able to incorporate a whole lot of other things into our routine. But in the beginning, you start with reading, writing, and math. That is the main focus area. Those are the main focus areas. Children are like sponges, right? We all know that phrase. But the truth is, if you squeeze an empty sponge, nothing will come out. So you first have to fill the sponge with some content, and then you can get some water out of it. So I definitely lean more towards starting early. Some people would say it's not the best thing for you to start early. You shouldn't push the child and all of those things. But for me, just from what I've seen in my own children, they have like just a natural thirst for knowledge. And when you start educating them, mainly what you're doing is making connections for them. So, um, for example, we have these. We'll get to it, but we have these flashcards, um, animal flashcards, and my 2-year-old now knows what a giraffe looks like. And now, if I had never told her that it was a giraffe, she probably would have never known that it's a giraffe. But now, what is happening is that when she sees a giraffe in other things, in other books, she can make the connection now that, oh, that's a giraffe. That's something I know. If you hold up a card to the child and tell them this is a star, they will know that this is a star. If you tell them this is a rabbit, they will know that this is a rabbit. And like that's how simple beginning like instruction with a baby is. You tell them what it is, they know what it is. That is all. Basically. So you just multiply that to infinity and beyond, basically. And the key to all of it is repetition. At this young age, repetition, repetition, repetition. So we are playing the same song all over again, again and again and again. We're reading the same books again and again and again. We're showing them the images again and again and again until, oh, okay, the camera is this way, until they know that they know what the content is. Okay, so the first thing you want to start with is reading. And in the young ages, you start with phonics. Phonics is the focus. Phonics is a method used to teach young children how to read by letting them understand the sounds that the different letters of the alphabet make, and even the combination sounds and what they produce. So for example, the children will start by learning that this is not O to your child. This is O. Okay. So they learn the sound that the letters make. This is N. This is Y. And this is W. So in the young ages, just throw away the ABC song. We don't need it. We're not using it for anything. We are teaching them the sounds that the letters make. Okay. And then there's a little bit of argument whether you should teach only the um lowercase first and then teach the uppercase later. And actually some of the sounds also make some of the letters make multiple sounds. And if you ever wondered why English feels so crazy sometimes, it's because of this, is that the letters make multiple sounds. So okay, I don't have my A card here, but A actually has three sounds. A says ah in short words like cat. It says A in long words like grave or yeah, you know what I mean. And then it also says or. Okay. So A actually has three sounds. Um, so there's a little bit of debate. Should you start by teaching them all the sounds at once? Should you teach both uppercase and lowercase together? From my experience with my firstborn, I'd say give them all the information at once so that there's no confusion later on. In teaching them all the sounds that the letters make, the best way is to just let them keep hearing it through songs. So we have these phonic songs that we use. It says the name of the letter and then all the sounds that the letter makes. So they are getting all of that information. But then when I come to teach them, I just focus on just the first sound that the letter makes. And I believe they can learn the two, like the capital and the lowercase at the same time. So there's no point in sort of like breaking it apart. The trick to that is you focus or you start with the letters that look the same, like the uppercase and the lowercase look the same. So it just helps, just a little trick to help them remember. And when you start, you choose like three or four different sounds. Choose like three or four different sounds at once so that they can actually start differentiating that there are different sounds in the alphabet and they all say something different. And then there's no need for you to actually teach it in alphabetical order. Like I said, the trick is pick the sounds that look the same. Pick the sounds that look the same. The k and the k look the same. So that's a good sound to start with. You can start with ah, you can start with s, you can start with t. Just pick three or four sounds that the uppercase and the lowercase look the same and then start with that. So then you need to make the learning fun. It doesn't need to be tedious. I like flashcards because they present a little chunk of information at once, without any sort of distractions. So when they see this, they can focus on it and like just their eyes are not being distracted by 1,000 different things. It is why I also purposely make the flashcards black and white and very simple so that there's no illustration, there's no like there's nothing to distract the child from the sound itself. You find a lot of flashcards have like the picture of an apple and then the letter A. But doesn't always, it's not, it doesn't have like a direct association with only an apple because art can be used in different words. So remove the illustration, focus only on the letters and the sounds that they make. And like I was saying, make it fun. You can use wooden letters, magnetic letters, um, to play games. Like you find ways and means, whatever your child is interested in, you just find a way to incorporate that into the learning. So if you take the put, you can say, oh, run and give the put to your daddy, or run and give the put to your sister, or let's jump on the sound that says put, and then they jump on it. If they have a small toy, you say, oh, let's let the toy sit on the put. Like you find ways and means to make make the learning fun, make it interesting, and then plan to go over all the sounds like a few rounds. They will not get all the sounds the first time around. But the thing is, you also don't want to spend too much time on like just four sounds. They'll get bored. So every time you're introducing one sound, whilst you're also reviewing the other sounds that you have already gone over, just so that you can keep up with a nice pace and they don't get bored. And um yeah. So once you have gone through it one time, plan that you are going to go over it a second time and probably a third time until they have mastered all of the sounds of the alphabet. And so there are the simple ABCs that we know sounds, and then there are also like blends and combinations of letters that make different sounds. When when the child is a bit older, you can use the same technique and just teach them all of those at sort of advanced sounds as well. So every day you take a few. So for example, this says and this says oo, and it says you. So like in flew and in few. And then this says e, and a, like in eat, bread, and in steak. So you can take a few. The advanced sounds come later on when they have mastered the basic sounds and they have already started reading. But you can use the same approach to teach the phonograms together. Okay. Um, but when you're starting with a young child and you are doing this, the lessons must be short, they must be sweet. You stop before the child starts to show any signs of fatigue or boredom, but they're walking away. Sometimes they'll walk away, but you can tell that they're still listening. So you can keep going. And sometimes, a lot of times, like I said, the learning happens after the fact. So you go ahead and present the information. You will find that later on during the day, you hear them saying what the same thing that you said. So at that point, you can still keep going. But if they're truly disengaged, you can't seem to get their attention, it's fine. Literally 5 minutes a day for flashcards. And you like just keep on doing that consistently until they master it. Slowly but surely they will get there. Then the second step to phonics is they start putting the letters together. So I created this book from a whole lot of trial and error because we kind of got stuck on this step. And sometimes you can get stuck on this blending step where the child has to learn to put the two sounds together. So I find that the key to this is they say the sound ah, then you get them to stretch it out and say it slowly, like ma. Then you prompt them to try and like say it fast, ma. And this is the step that tripped us up for a very long time. But after doing a whole lot of research, I realized that this is it distilled in its like simplest form. Say the two sounds, say them together slowly, say them fast. We're running out of time. We're way overboard, and I have lots more to get through, but maybe we'll have to do a part two or something. So we practice the blending. So I'll just finish up on phonics and then maybe we can do the other things another session, if that's okay. And so we kept on practicing just blending. Then we go to two letter words where they are just practicing how to blend the two-letter words until they are confident. So this stage, it just takes practice, 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 lots and lots of repetition. And I intentionally designed it such that lessons are short and sweet. This is just one, you can do 1 or 2 pages a day, and the child doesn't get overwhelmed by the lesson. Short and sweet, just do it consistently and they'll get it. Then from there, you can move on to three-letter words, three-letter words, um, and then get to a point where you are just practicing till they are fluent, so that they can see a word like this and they can just say big instead of like having to say big. So you still use games, you are jumping, you are incorporating movement, you are just doing all sorts of things just to get the child engaged in the material one way or the other. Then once they are good with that, you start building fluency by reading short passages, very short fluency passages. Um, and that is why we try as much as possible to protect the child's attention span. So I was saying, and then when they master that, then you start working on fluency by reading short decodable. So they call them decodable because the child can see the letters. They know that per artist says pat, and then they can sort of put it back together. And so pat, tap, 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 tap the map, tap, 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 tap the jam, tap the pan, bam, the end. That's the end of the story. So very short sense, very, very short, um, little readers like that will build fluency in the child. And then when they, as I said, when they get older, um, you can teach them the more advanced sounds like ch and sh and all of those other ones. I think we have kind of run out of time today. It's been a lot. I also don't want to overwhelm everybody. So I think we'll just have to do a part 2 where I can talk about math and then early writing. And then when your child gets older, some of the other activities that you can include in the session. So let me please end it here today. If you have any questions, please let's do that now. And then we can say goodbye. Thank you all so much. Okay, so please you can unmute and then hi.
Hello, it's me, Pa.
Hi, pa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to what like you have said. I felt I know like there's so much to say, but we are like well over time. And I just have a feeling that it might look very overwhelming, but I just wanted to just say that Enyuhu, it's not as overwhelming as it seems. In the initial stages, you are doing like 5 minutes a day. And like she said, it's just the consistency. It's not it's just about staying consistent. Just doing 5 minutes to 10 minutes a day, even if it's just like reading to them, the consistency that pays off. And also the audiobooks. I felt you stressed very much on audiobook, and that was good. But one thing you failed to mention was using Spotify and other like resources like that. Because immediately you say audiobooks, you're looking at, okay, obviously some people can get free audiobooks, but you're looking at buying, maybe you have like a subscription like on Spotify. There's a whole library of resources that you can use that will be very, very beneficial. And we are very open to sharing like what we know, some of the resources that have helped tremendously, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah,
Okay. I didn't
yeah.
mention resources because I was just trying to keep things moving, but I have like a ton of resources that I'm compiling so that I can share with everybody, all my links, all my books, all the things that I have I read and referenced. I'm preparing all of that in a way that I can share with everyone. So fear not.
Yeah, okay. So that's my 2 cents. It's not that deep. You just need to stay consistent. It's very frustrating sometimes, but when it pays off,
You'll be glad
you
you
be so
put in
glad.
the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
So
you. That's my husband,
let's take the
in case
questions.
any everybody's wondering. All right. So any questions, please? Any other questions?
I want to find out if there's a way to marry if you're not doing like 100% homeschooling, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to marry the traditional schooling with
Yeah.
homeschooling and like how to do it right if you've done any research into it.
Yes, it's very possible. Actually, a lot of people homeschool kind of like in the evenings when they come back from work. Um, if you are not following, if okay, so there's a plastic surgeon, a Ghanaian plastic surgeon who lives in the US who homeschools his children. His handle is at homeschool doctor. So he does his job, his 9 to 5, and then in the evenings from around 7 to 8, he homeschools his children. And his children are like, I think his 7-year-old is already doing like high school math or something like that. The misconception is that like school has to take a long time, and that's not really the case. If you think about what fills up a school day, a typical school day, a lot of it is like getting the children into class, getting everybody to sit down, taking attendance. Okay, you sit down, let's start. You know, um, a
Mhm.
teacher has to manage a whole group of children. When you are homeschooling your child, is you and your child. It's one-on-one. It's like it's basically like tutoring. So you can definitely tutor your child after work. Obviously, it would mean more effort on your part as the parent, but it's completely and perfectly doable to supplement whatever they're having in school with what you're doing at home.
Do you get to take the kids out and where do you like take them to? You know,
Yes.
like having to go to, I know in Ghana, so if you had to go to
Yeah.
the zoo and stuff, that kind of thing, how do you deal with, like, do you have, how much of a resource do you have when you, like, you actually need them? So, like, I know, say, a Ghanaian zoo, for example, might not have some animals and you can show them on the
Mhm.
TV, but when you do go out, like, where do you go with the kids for activities
Okay.
and like to show them this?
All right. So yes, I actually wanted to add that in. We only have 1 minute again. So I guess this would be the last thing. Um, it's a challenge in Ghana. We don't have parks. We don't have like just open places. I hear even Legon Botanical Gardens is being it's a whole lot of issues. So when we have to go out, like it becomes a whole thing in itself. Like we have to plan for it, research, do a bit more work than maybe somebody who's living outside, but it's definitely still doable. We just make do with what we have. So Legon Botanical Gardens is one. There are so many. I can make a list of like a few parks and playgrounds and other places that we found. But also what we just do is we just let the kids come with us when we are going wherever. They just come along with us. When we are going to the supermarket, we're going to the market. Sorry, you have to end this very, very soon now. We're way over time. Um, so yeah, like I was saying, we just make do with what we have. We visit family and friends. We go to the pool sometimes, and then we sometimes enroll. You can also make use of like extracurricular activities. May not be like the typical outdoor thing, but at least they get to go outside. They get to do something um a bit different from the regular routine. So like I said, I'm compiling everything I know, everything I really want to say about homeschooling, and I'm putting everything together. And when it's ready, I will probably share or announce it in the group and probably on my IG. But thank you all so much. Honestly, I was telling a friend that I didn't expect anybody to show up. I was just going to give the presentation and then record it and then just let people have it. But thank you all so much for spending this hour or so with me. I am very, very grateful.